The mayor of Turkey's biggest city, Istanbul, remains in police custody following his arrest on charges including corruption and aiding a terrorist group. Ekrem İmamoğlu is considered the top rival to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. For 2 days, protesters have defied a government ban on demonstrations to oppose his arrest. They're calling it a coup attempt against Turkey's next president. Mobile phone footage shows Mr. İmamoğlu arriving at hospital after his detention. He's addressed followers on social media saying you cannot and must not remain silent. Well, speaking at the EU summit in Brussels, Germany's Chancellor condemned the arrest.
In recent years, we have endeavored to further improve relations between Europe and Turkey. That is why the arrest of such a key opposition politician and the mayor of Istanbul is a very, very bad sign. It is a bad sign for democracy in Turkey, but it is certainly also a bad sign for relations between Europe and Turkey. We can only call for an immediate end to this and for the opposition and the government to compete with each other, rather than the opposition being put on trial.
Well, the Turkish government's imposed a 4-day ban on demonstrations. I asked our correspondent in Istanbul, Dorian Jones, what to make of the 2 days of demonstrations which have gone out on the streets despite the ban.
Yeah, there's been a lot of anger generated over this move against İmamoğlu. We've saw tens of thousands of people gathering at night last night outside the City Hall in support of the imprisoned mayor. And throughout the day today, we've seen much smaller protests, but still many all across the city, mainly by students and even school children, along with individual acts of defiance which have been posted on social media. And it has to be said that such protests, especially when they are considered illegal, it doesn't come without risks. Turkey is very much like Russia these days and Europe. They do carry severe penalties, and Istanbul is one of the most surveilled cities in the world, and the police will be going through that with facial recognition, and the possibility of arrests in the coming days of those who participated is a serious risk. So I think the government will be looking that kind of pressure will start to see the protests start to dissipate, but the opposition have called for another big protest tonight and more protests at the weekend. Which way those protests go, do they continue to grow or do they dissipate, could be key to what the government does going forward. There's an expectation that President Erdogan could even impose a trustee in Istanbul and take over the city, and possibly even move against the main opposition party, the CHP, of which the imprisoned mayor belongs to. So it is key which way these protests go, and I think there will be a lot of expectation in the next few days which way the country is heading.
The Erdogan government has denied accusations that these arrests are politically motivated. How credible are those denials?
Yeah, you're right. The Justice Minister Yilmaz Tunç has said it is outrageous, these claims. He calls them dangerous and unfounded. He said everyone must be equal before the law, and insists that this is purely an independent move by the judiciary. But it has to be said the timing is damning. These investigations have been going on for several years. They appear to be going nowhere. But the moment that İmamoğlu took steps to run as a president, even though the elections aren't due until 2028, the expectation is they could be earlier. İmamoğlu has been touring the country to large gatherings of support. Then the arrest occurred, and that happened only days before he was expected to receive the formal nomination from his party. So everyone will be looking to the fact that this seems more than a coincidence. And it has to be said, even before this latest incident, according to many opinion polls, it found as much as over 70% of the people don't believe the judiciary is independent. These latest events will have done little to instill any confidence in the judiciary.
And a brief word about the around 100 other people who have been arrested. Who are they and what sort of charges are they facing? Briefly, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, Yeah, they are facing very similar charges to the mayor. They're accused of being part of a criminal conspiracy linked to corruption and also to terror-related charges. And that goes back to the last election last year in which İmamoğlu reached out to the main pro-Kurdish party, Dem Party, for support. That was considered to be linked to the terrorist organisation, the PKK, and they are facing terror charges as well. Serious charges, and many of them are linked to İmamoğlu's close political circle.
Thank you for that, Dorian. Dorian Jones in Istanbul.